Hey guys, Argument Templar here. So we're here with the next argument, building on the foundation led by the cosmological argument. So this is the argument from design and for life. I should probably change that to from. But anyways, let's begin. So, the really amazing thing is not that life on Earth is balanced on a knife's edge, but that the entire universe is balanced on a knife's edge, and would be total chaos if any of the natural constants were off even slightly. You see, Davies adds, even if you dismiss man as a chance happening, the fact remains that the universe seems unreasonably suited to the existence of life. Almost contrived. You might say it's a put-up job or a setup, and that's by a Christian physicist, Paul Davies. So, the history of the design argument. This is yet another, most of these will be classical arguments dating back to antiquity. It is a classical argument for God's existence dating back at least to Socrates, probably further back, used by almost every theologian in history, including the Apostle Paul when he was talking to the Greeks. St. Augustine really liked it, and Thomas Aquinas used it. It's also used by a number of famous scientists like Isaac Newton, Galileo, and Kepler. You may have heard of some of them, particularly Isaac Newton and Kepler. It suffered greatly during the 19th century when the theory of evolution and developments in geology made it clear the universe was much older than previously thought. Once again, if the universe has infinite time, anything can happen. Capiche? That makes sense. However, with the Big Bang Theory, the death of the eternal universe, and recent developments in cosmology, the design argument has come back stronger than ever. I know William Lane Craig says, we are at the time in history where there is the most scientific evidence in favor of the design argument. So, what is the basic argument? I will admit, I'm not a scientist. I am a layman on this topic. So I rely on Dr. Craig and some other famous scientists, because he's not a scientist either, he's an analytical philosopher. So he compiled a bunch of stuff from people who know more about this than we do. So there are a number of scientists who have written far more exhaustively on this. If you want to go look it up, you can. Essentially, there are a limitless number of laws, forces, and other aspects of our universe that if they differentiated even slightly, they would ensure that not only could life not form, but matter would not form, and there would be, in effect, no universe to ever give rise to life. There's gravity, there's how far the Earth is from the Sun, there's the fact that stars exist at all, there's the fact that planets exist at all. There's the magnetic constant that protects us from cosmic radiation. There's cosmic radiation. There's gravity. There's just think about all the different forces in the universe, both fundamental and otherwise, that have to exist and have to be done just so that the universe itself can even function the way it does. That it doesn't just immediately recollapse, or it doesn't just tear itself apart, or that matter can exist in such a stable state. For example, in the case of the force of gravity, if this constant varied by just 1 in 10 to the power of 60, so that is 10 times 10 60 times, that's point, so that's 10 divided by, that's 1 divided by 10 to the power of 60, so that's like, if gravity was off by the strength of point, a googolplex number of zeros 1. It's almost impossible to understand how low the percentage if it was different. None of us would exist. The universe would have expanded too slow or too fast. There'd be no stars, no planets, and no life. This is one of an endless number of factors that, if off just a bit, would ensure that there was no life at all, or really no universe as we understand it today. This is further compounded by the fact that, as we talked about last time, all evidence indicates that this is the only universe that exists, or ever has existed, and there is not infinite time for infinite things to happen. Okay, pretty straightforward. So this is Michael Turner, who is an astrophysicist. He says the precision is as if one could throw a dart across the entirety of the universe and hit a bullseye 1 millimeter in diameter on the other side. So the likelihood of being able to throw a dart across the universe and hitting a 1 millimeter target is a rough conception of all the variables aligning just so to give rise to the universe in its current state. So that is basically, like, that's just for gravity. If you add them all up, that's kind of a cute little description of how it works. Thus, given all of this, we go to William Paley and his argument about the watch. So essentially, you find a watch on the ground, and it should be inquired how that watch happened to be in that place. I should hardly think of the answer. I had been given that for anything I knew, the watch must have always been there. So basically, if you find something that appears to be designed, you don't assume it's just sitting there. If you find a watch on the beach, you don't assume that it's always been there, that it's existed since time immemorial, because it's obviously something that was designed by a mind. You don't assume that waves hit the sand, and the random motion of the waves somehow gave rise to a working watch. No, you assume an artificer or artificers formed the watch for that purpose, and find it, and these people comprehended its construction and designed its use. Every indication of contrivance, every manifestation of design which existed in the watch exists in the works of nature, with the difference on the side of nature of being infinitely or greater more complex to a degree which exceeds all human capacity for computation. I think that's pretty straightforward. So in summary, the universe is so complicated and the conditions for its current state so improbable, it is plausible to suggest that it is the product of a mind. Because just like humans are capable of designing complex machines, like computers, with numerous interconnected, mutually dependent parts and laws, the universe is a big machine. It functions with laws, it functions with interconnecting parts, etc. So just like that, it's reasonable to suggest a supreme intellect would be capable of doing the same thing with the universe, that the universe is designed. The objection is that the universe also creates complex creatures using natural methods. While the universe is not a living thing, and it was created in an instant, not over a distant past, I don't see the relevance. If there was an infinite amount of... So basically the argument is that the theory of evolution created life. And if the theory of evolution created life, then the theory of evolution created the universe. Well, the theory of evolution applies to biology. It applies to certain social and biological and physiological characteristics of biology. It doesn't apply to inanimate matter. Also, the universe and all the constants that make it up happened at a specific time in the past. There's not an infinite amount of time for all the constants of the universe to just be fiddled with until you get the right configuration and life shows up. So this brings us to the subject of life in of itself, which is, I think, very compelling evidence for the existence of a creator. Okay. So, I contend that life is something different from non-life. Perhaps this is an appeal to mysticism or intuition, but to me at least there is a fundamental difference between a man and a vat filled with the chemicals that would make up said man. A man has intentionality, he has will, he is something special and unique. All life is special and unique. In contrast to non-life, which is subject to entropy and constantly decays and declines, life is driven by the evolutionary impulse. It continues to advance and evolve, and we'll get into this when we get into theosis and the ultimate nature of humanity. But life evolves, it grows. It's the opposite of inanimate objects, which tend to decline, decay, to fall apart, to become more disordered. Life is the alternative, is the opposite of this. Life has consciousness. Consciousness is as great a mystery as the existence of the universe. It's a mystery in itself, as strange as whether or not how life exists at all. And to me, this is one of the great evidence for God's existence. That there is something called life. Even if you could explain how life would form, I still just think it's something so different, distinct, that it has to have something that made it. It's just something fundamentally different. And I keep saying that, but it just seems intuitively true. So, I'm not a biochemist, but from what I read from people who are biochemists, the likelihood of chemicals necessary for life to start simply aligning is, in the words of one person, You have a junkyard containing all the bits and pieces of a Boeing 747, dismembered and in disarray. A whirlwind happens to blow through the yard, and what is the chance then of, after the whirlwind blows through, a fully assembled 747 ready to fly will be found standing there? So small as to be negligible, even if a tornado were to blow through enough junkyards to fill the whole universe. That's how improbable it is that the exact collection of chemicals would come together to form life. That doesn't explain why life became more complex life. That doesn't explain why evolution exists at all, why life exists at all, why chemicals are able to form life. Once again, I'm not a biochemist, so I can't go into all the scientific details as I'm not terribly familiar with them. But to me at least, life randomly arising on one of the very few planets in the universe that it can be supported on, and then evolving into complex animals, and eventually into humans who are capable of consciousness and looking at the universe like this, seems to suggest a creator of some sort. And I think there's a good analogy to computers here. Humans can design artificial minds. A computer is an artificial mind designed to think like a human. So my intuition is that God created us much the same way humans create computers, although humans have souls. So God created a lesser version of himself in humans that possess a mind, reason, intentionality, and free will, much like him. So essentially, I believe it takes a mind to create a mind. So if we can make computers, God could make us. So if the Creator made us similar to himself, then we have the same desire and inclination towards creation. We have a desire to build things, to advance, to grow, to create things like us, to create things that represent us, like art, like computers, like literature, etc. So, one of the core objections that has been raised and is increasingly becoming prominent is that the origin of life is aliens. Because it's so unlikely that life were to be formed, aliens are increasingly being floated as the origin of life on Earth. Richard Dawkins has entertained this notion, and the Nobel Prize winner Crick of Watson and Crick, who discovered how DNA works, are notable proponents. If you don't Google me, Google panspermia. And this is also advocated in a number of movies, such as Indiana Jones 4, Prometheus, a number of other movies. There's always this kind of conspiracy theory that the elite at some point will claim that aliens made us and use that as a way of disproving religion. There's also there's a number of movies where aliens are presented as gods or some sort of creator figure. So we were made by aliens. And this is kind of what they're having to resort to because it's so improbable for life to give rise. The problem is, despite this being an obvious admittance that life on Earth was designed by someone, albeit not God, but it admits that design is the most obvious explanation. So they're basically throwing the bone back in our court. It doesn't answer the question, which I misspelled, of where did the aliens come from and who designed them, which is what they say in Prometheus. It doesn't really answer the question. It's Occam's razor. It makes the issue more complicated. We're bringing aliens into it. We're bringing dimensional space travel into it. We're bringing interstellar space travel in it. We're doing all this random stuff to try and explain it, and it doesn't explain where did their life come from. Where did intelligent aliens come from? Where did the universe come from? It doesn't explain any of this. It still doesn't explain what life is and how it exists at all. So let's put it all together. So simply put, the universe is fine-tuned for the existence of life, and indeed matter itself. There is no eternal universe or multiple universes for that matter, meaning there is no infinite time for these very particular conditions to develop over. If there was an infinite amount of time, then maybe after untold eons, it would randomly happen. But we only have 15 billion years, which when you consider the Earth is, 8 billion years old, and life is only a couple billion years old, that's not that much time for things with this astronomical level of improbability to happen. Throwing darts across the universe for 15 billion years isn't really that long a time. I doubt it would even reach the other side of the universe because the universe is expanding faster than a dart flies. So, we're faced by two alternatives, and you can accept one or two. You can say that, okay, that dart flew across the universe and it hit that target. The universe is literally just that much of a random chance, which I don't buy. It still doesn't explain where the universe came from. And this is how these arguments build off of one another. Or there's a creator who designed stuff. So keep in mind, even if it is an accident, that doesn't explain where the universe came from. Thus, the cosmological and design arguments mutually support and strengthen each other. If you have a mind who gave rise to the universe, and I think I proved fairly convincingly that you do need a mind and you do need a supernatural cause, then why would that mind not design it? It doesn't seem like that big a step beyond it. In fact, it seems more likely if a personal figure created the universe that he did design it. If you create something, you design it. The two go well together. So the design argument strengthens the idea that the force that created the universe is not some impersonal, blind, idiot watchmaker, but that this force is a mind, because there's evidence of design in it, much as humans design something. So these two arguments really strengthen each other. And if you reject one, the other still remains. So they both stand on each other, they both strengthen each other. I can talk about that more if someone wants, but I think it's pretty straightforward. So the current picture we have of God is the image of a creator who gave rise to the universe and designed it in such a way that it would give rise to life. So we are gradually moving towards a deistic God. So we have a God who made the universe and created it in such a way that matter would form, that planets would form, that stars would form, that life would form, and that we would form. And God, I would contend, is the best explanation we have for all these improbabilities happening, for the mystery of life and the mystery of consciousness. So that is the follow-up to the cosmological argument. We will keep going. This is Argument Templar signing out.